Torah on tap. This week's class is a continuation of our conversation in the past few weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, hi, lady, no, and gentlemen. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Last week we spoke about unleashing your full potential, and we said this week we are going to go into the conversation about the different elements. And if you have had spent time with us in the past, and you went through our astrology classes, you know that there are 4 other elements that help define and discuss and express our character traits. And we're talking this week a little bit about we're talking a little bit about the element of earth. And what we want to do is, even though we recognize that these elements are often a very much part and parcel of our psyche, part of the class is understanding how to undo the challenge that comes with that particular element. So when we spoke about earth in the past, we said that earth is on the lowest level, it's the body level, it's the earthy level. The obstacle with earth is that there's sluggishness, there's laziness, there's sadness, there's jealousy. So how do we go ahead and alleviate these things? How do we fix these traits? You got to bring energy into your life. You got to bring joy into your life. You got to be consistent. You got to create good habits. You got to have an abundance mindset. And we spoke about how each one of these 4 traits represent one of the avot, and specifically this one is tied to Abraham and Sarah, and even a little bit of Rivka, which is why Yitzchak was able to go ahead and marry Yitzchak. Okay. So let's just dive deep. You should have the sheets out in front of you. And if you're watching this online, there is a URL at the bottom of the description that has a link to these actual sheets as well. So there's always a sheet for everybody. Okay, so we're going to start with Yechezkel. Yechezkel tells us, V'hachayot ratzot, right? There are angels that are running, ratzot v'shuv, k'mareh habazak, right? There are angels that are running and returning like the appearance of sparks. Things that are spiritual, things that are profound, things that make a difference are always running. They're moving. They don't remain still. Things that remain still are the opposite of angels. Angels are called malachim because they're walking, they're moving. We want to be like the angels. We can be greater than the angels. We can't become angelic if you're sitting all day on your lazy bum. Okay, so Ramchal says, the path of the just, chapter number 7, zeal, zrizut, can result from the inner passion, but we could also create one. Meaning, if you wake up in the morning and you just don't feel motivated, and you're feeling lazy, okay, this one's for you. The Ramchal says that is one who perceives a quickening of his outer movements in the performance of good deed conditions himself to experience the flaming inner movement through which the longing and desire will continually grow. If, however, he is sluggish in the movement of his limbs, the movement of his spirit will die down and be extinguished. Experience testifies this. Now, which means that if you feel sluggish and you allow yourself to indulge in that emotion of feeling sluggish, because you're naturally an earthy person, you're more of like a grounded kind of person, because your nature is earth, know that you won't go anywhere. And what he's really saying is that if your nature is to be sluggish, then you have to choose to put energy, or what he's saying really is movement, into your reality. We're so used to allowing our emotion to dictate how we feel that when we feel lazy and tired, we just lean into being lazy and tired. And what Ramchal is saying, no, the opposite. The laziness and tiredness is the obstacle of the earth, midah. And therefore our job is to recognize the midah, call it out for what it is, okay? A sluggish, lazy, destructive midah, that leads to depression, that leads to jealousy, that leads to all the negative emotions that come with earthiness. And your job is to hack the system so you could undo this particular nature. So the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam says as follows. He says, Avraham and Sarah were prophets and dynamic teachers. They're credited for their bravery in going out into the corrupted world and to preach and to educate about monotheism and morality. Yet we don't hear much detail in the Torah about their powerful seminars and lectures that drew tens of thousands of followers, although we know that also most of those people that were very involved in Avraham and Sarah's outreach, right, they ended up not really sticking to it. Because at the end of the day, while earthliness is amazing, it's a very powerful trait. We've associated Avraham and Sarah with earthiness, which means their nature is to be chillers. They're chesed, they're peace guys. We love you. Think about Avraham and Sarah as like the total ultimate, hippies. Right? That's what they were. But they don't sound like hippies. You'll see in a moment, right? V'yisainav, right? He lifts up his eyes, Avraham, and he sees that there are men that are standing there. He sees them and he comes out to them and he's running after them. Look at the end of it, number 6. And Avraham ran to the tent of Sarah. He hastened there. He got him the meal, and then he runs out, and then he hastens. He's running. When you think of a hippie, he's not running anywhere. Right? You're thinking of the guy, he's like walking slowly, all right, with peace and love and chill comes a peace and love and chill attitude. So usually when you personify someone who's earthy and calm and like that total hipster, hippie, chilled attitude, it comes with a certain level of just chilliness. But yet Avraham and Sarah, even though their nature is to be those lovers and pursuers of chesed, you see them evoking a different type of energy and midah when they're working with the people around them. Why is that? And by the way, why did the Pesukim have to tell me this? Right? It's interesting. Like we spoke about this earlier on when we started the series, that the Avot are here in the story, not just time to tell us a story, but they're here to teach us the nature, the psychology, the inner understanding of what it means to be a successful human being. So yet here we learned that these are people that are earthy people, right? Their nature is to be earthy, but yet somehow we're seeing them use midot that are not associated with their natural inclination. Do you guys chop that? You guys hear me? Okay, great. Motion creates emotion. Tony Robbins, I just saved you $500 to go this time. That's the whole entire seminar right there. Okay? And he'll do that for like an hour. Okay? Motion creates emotion. By the way, this is exactly what the Ramchal was saying earlier, right? And this is what if you're in a bad mood, go for a walk. And if you're still in a bad mood, go for another walk. Right? If you're in a place where you're feeling stuck and lazy, do some type of activity. That activity will reset the physical act of movement. Motion is life, right? Motion creates a chain reaction that allows a new reality to emerge from within yourself. Right? You have to move yourself into a place of happiness. Happiness is the only thing that allows you to be in a mobile state. When you're happy, your body becomes expansive. You actually grow. When you're sad, your body contracts, your pupils contract. Everything becomes small and narrow and depressing and earthy. If you want to break yourself out of that space, you have to move to a place of simcha. You cannot be an earthy person and if you lean into your natural earthiness, you're always going to be depressed. Earthy people naturally get depressed faster than other people because they're just so chill. And because you're so chill, you're just not going to move. But an earthy person has to recognize that midah is there for a reason. That when you've identified that particular trait, your job is to recognize that there is an antidote to it, which is why these stories in the Chumash are so powerful for us. Like David HaMelech says, Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. You gotta serve God with happiness. There is no other way to serve God. You can't serve God when you're depressed. As a matter of fact, if we were prophets and prophetesses, right, you couldn't get prophecy if you were depressed. Only someone in a state of happiness can actually hear God speak to them. Depression, don't work. Ivdu Hashem, only b'simcha. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Okay, what does he say? He said it's a great mitzvah to always be happy. Strengthen yourself and push aside all depression and sadness. Everyone has a lot of problems. I'm telling you about it. And the nature of man is to be attracted to sadness. To escape these difficulties, constantly bring joy into your life. Even if you have to resort to silliness, do stupid things, go crazy. Gemara and Ta'anit, a great sage, Rabbi Baroka Choza, right? You often met with Eliyahu Navi. On one occasion, he asked Eliyahu to point out anyone in the market who's married would guarantee them a place in the next world. And Eliyahu Navi pointed to two individuals, right? From their outside appearance, did not necessarily look saintly at all. The Chacham approached them and asked them, "What's your occupation?" You know what they said? "We're comedians. We're jesters. When we see sad people, we cheer them up, and we see the two people in an argument, we strive to reconcile them, my friends, that is the antidote to everything bad in this world. Stop thinking about all the negative. There's so much bad in the world, and it's so easy to get lost in the sadness. Even post October 7th, watching what's happening in Israel, it's so easy to get caught up in the negativity of it. I can't control what's happening there, but you know what I can control? I can control what's happening in here. If I'm depressed, can I help my people? If I'm sad, can I help my people? I should empathize. I should feel their pain, but I shouldn't be depressed about it, because I could be in a happy state. When we went on that first trip this past November, right after October 7th, when I went to the airport, there were just like people were just starting to fly to Israel. So the El Al stewardess looks at me. She's like, "Why are you going to Israel? Not the best time." I'm like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, "This is the best time." And I had this like big smile. She thought I was crazy. She stopped for a second. Like you could see her processing what I just said, because she thought it was weird. She's like, "You're right." You know, like, you're right. You go. You know, she's like, it's just an attitude. Like, it's so easy to be like taken in by it and broken by it. But that's the earthy side of who you are, allowing it to take control. And your job is to say, no, that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be the sad, slow person who's earthy and lazy. I need to be the expansive, big, happy person that's going to go out there and build and create a better world, like the melachim, the angels, the sparks that go out and build the world. The Gemara says, "V'titzchak yitzara b'kirba." Even Sarah is laughing, right? That simcha, that she's the first person that understands this. The earthy people are the people that are always laughing. Now, the hippies are not the people that you think are laughing, right? They may be, depending on what they're on, but they're doing that because they're taking themselves out of their natural state. If they're not on something, they're naturally depressed. They're unhappy. Okay, but you see over here, the first time we hear the word tzchok comes from whom? Not an accident, Sarah. Right? She's 90 years old, and she was just told that she's going to have a baby. She's like, that's crazy. That's like funny, right? But she laughs as a way of dealing with her reality, because she doesn't want to be sluggish. She wants to be in a state of movement. V'yashkem Avraham baboker. What does a lazy person do? He gets up early in the morning. Abraham's nature is to be sluggish. What does he do? He gets up early in the morning. He's going against the grain of his nature, because he wants to become something great. The only way we can achieve greatness is by going in the opposite direction of our nature. Number 13, Genesis 22:3. He gets up early in the morning. Same idea. Maimonides, bodily health and well-being are part of the path to God. It's impossible to understand or have any knowledge of the Creator when one is sick. Therefore, one must avoid anything that may harm the body and must cultivate healthful habits like going to the gym, eating properly, stop eating processed foods. Go and take care of yourselves. You have a responsibility to go out there and be besimcha. When you're taking care of yourself and you're making good choices, you know what happens? Did you ever hear the concept of mitzvah, goreret mitzvah? When you do a positive action, a positive deed, another positive deed that comes out as a result of it. When you start having a healthy, habitual mindset, what happens next? The next habit is a good one also. You've heard the expression, the opposite expression of aveira goreret aveira. Oh, same idea. When you do a sin, right? When you make a mistake, you're causing another one. Negative habits, negative thoughts cause more negative thoughts. Positive thoughts cause more positive thoughts. They go hand in hand. The way of God, the Ramchal, Moshe Chaim Lazado, one of the commandments, number 15, requires that we keep our bodies fit so we can serve God, and that we derive our needs from the environment to achieve this goal. In this manner, we elevate ourselves through such activities. The world itself is also elevated, since it is then also helping man to serve God. He wants us to have a happy health. Tishmor nafshecha me'od, Pasuk says. Mishnah Nohalot lists the 248 limbs, bones in a person, 30 in the feet, 10 in the ankle, 2 in the shin, 5 in the knee, 1 in the thigh, 3 in the pelvis, 11 ribs, 30 in the hand, 2 in the forearm, 2 in the elbow, 1 in the upper arm, 4 in the shoulder. That makes 101 on one side and 101 on the other. 18 vertebrae in the spine, 9 in the head, 8 in the neck, 6 in the opening of the heart, 5 in the orifices, and boom, 248 Okay, all the limbs of a person's body. The body represents the earth, not an accident. The gematria of Abraham is 248. Yes. Yes. All right. Can I ask you for a favor, young man? Can you get me a glass of water? Thank you. It's too late. You lost the mitzvah. All right. Number 18. Rashi v'hayat tamim. Right? This is Abraham, talking about Abraham, and how perfect he was. What does he say over here? He says this too is a commandment following on the previous command, the wholehearted in all these trials I impose upon you, according to the Midrash. What does it mean that he walked before God? Thank you so much. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol nihiyah bidbaro. Oh, nothing like water. Thank you, Hashem. Okay. What does perfect mean over here? Perfect means that he uses all of the membranes of his body, right, in a way to connect to God. That's perfection. Perfection is using all of yourselves, every part of who you are, to go ahead and being a person that is moving and connecting to God. It's not an accident, by the way, that Abraham is the only person in the Torah that says, Anochi afar ve'efar. I am nothing but the dust of the earth. He's calling himself earth. By the way, which particular real estate deal does Abraham do? It's famous. What does he buy? He buys like one of the most famous, it's the oldest Marat HaMachpelah. Where is that found? In Hebron. There are 4 holy cities in Israel, right? Each one represents a different element. What element is Hebron? And where does he live? In Hebron. Where is he buried? In Hebron. You think that's an accident? Abraham is earth. Do you see it now? He's earth. Everything about him is earth. But everything about his nature is the opposite of earth. Because then we have a predisposition to certain kind of character traits. And when we overcome that predisposition, we become what we are. Greatness, what we're supposed to be. I spoke about this on Sefirah Shlishi. Remember, Teshuvah. Okay, we're 39 days away from Rosh Hashanah. Okay, the word Teshuvah, which means to return, should be in your minds already. Okay, and we spoke a little bit at Sefirah Shlishi. We said that people often make the mistake in thinking that Teshuvah is about self-transformation, but really Teshuvah is about self-expression. It's about connecting to or expressing what you're really meant to be. I don't get it, Rabbi. If I'm really meant to be earthy, shouldn't I be earthy? No, that's not what I'm saying. The nature is there for you to overcome. Through the act of overcoming the nature, the midah is how you become great. The greatest people in the world are overcoming their nature. Do you understand that? Abraham and Sarah, their nature is earth. And they become great because they do the opposite of what it means to be earth. The contrast, okay, is what allows them to succeed in achieving their unique tafkid in this world. Hopefully on this Rosh Hashanah, you'll recognize that. Like the Lubavitcher Rabbi said when we did our positive thinking course, he said, think good and it'll be good. Right? You're not in a positive mindset, you're thinking negative. Okay, we'll see later a study from Stanford University that proves that when you're in a negative state, you only call negativity to you. Okay, jealousy, right? We're going to go through the story of Cain and Hevel, by the way, because even Cain, okay, is earth also, and you see he's the expression of earth that fails. Right? And I'll show that to you right now. It's a direct result of the feelings of lowliness and lack of self-esteem. When we feel insecure about ourselves, we create a narrative in our minds that everyone else's success is coming at our expense. Since the earth element is primarily about survival and security, when we feel threatened by other people, it arouses all sorts of negative emotions against them. So how can we take the earth element that naturally creates a feeling of jealousy and turn to a source of generosity and a feeling of responsibility for others? That's what we're going to talk about for the next 10-15 minutes, and then we'll call it a very quick evening. We're on 22. Okay. Genesis. V'tomar, right? She said, "V'temaher v'tared kedal yed tishkeu v'tochel hashkod." V'tomar, who is this? Rivka. Rivka moves quickly also, right? She also has v'temaher v'taratz. Also, you see that language of her quickly and running and moving. She is the bridge between Avraham and Yitzchak. That midah. She's the connector. Now, what we find is that, and that's the reason why she ends up meriting to marry Yitzchak. Eliezer sees that trait that he sees in his masters, right, Avraham and Sarah, the opposite trait of someone who is naturally an earth element who moves into a space of moving and is successful as a result of it. You have to understand, when you're in a state of movement, when you're in a state of happiness, when you're in a constant state of constructive development, when you're in that flow state, which is what that is, you're naturally moving faster. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. All of you experience being in a flow state, where like everything hits, you're focused, it's clear, and you're like being productive, and you're accomplishing, you're killing it, you're crushing it. It never happens when you're depressed. It never happens when you're feeling lazy, that flow state. Flow states only come from a place of happiness. It comes from a place of alacrity, a place of moving quickly. Stanford research says as follows. You could look this. You could just Google that title. You'll find it. It's June 11, 2018. Mindsets can significantly influence our health and behavior. This includes phenomena like placebo effect and with the belief of treatment of efficacy that can lead to actual health improvements. Research also demonstrates how believing that certain activities are beneficial, such as thinking of the physical work as exercise, can lead to tangible health benefits independent of the actual physical activity. Fascinating. Additionally, other studies explore how the brain processes real and imagined stimuli similarly, sometimes making it difficult to distinguish between what is imagined and what is real. You all seen that like experiment where they have like your hand covered and have like a fake hand there, and like the guy takes a hammer and he's about to slam it, and you like freak out that like he actually crushed your hand. Right? The brain can't make that distinction between what is real and what is fake. This overlap suggests that our mental focus and visualization can indeed impact our perception of reality, supporting the concept of mind shaping what we experience. Your mind helps you express the world that you're in. Your mindset, therefore, has an impact on how you perceive reality. And if you're in a negative state, you will see everything negatively. This is true with dating. This is true especially with family. I can't tell you how many conversations I get with young people about their families. My mom is this, my dad is that, over and over again. Why? Because they've already accepted a negative state, a negative interpretation of their family. And instead of seeing, by the way, like the mitzvah, like we did, if you haven't listened to the class on Kibbutz Av V'Em, it's up there, go find it. We did like 6 or 7 classes on Kibbutz Av V'Em. The mitzvah of honoring your father and mother and fearing them is unnatural to most people today, because we've never really learned to love our parents. And therefore, if we're not proactively working on that particular trait, you ain't going to experience it. It's never going to be real. You have to make these emotions real. This is the same reason I just bumped into a bunch of classmates, and like half of my class is divorced, right? It's fascinating. It's a very interesting cross-section of different kinds of people with different backgrounds. Now, the one thing we all had in common is that none of us were really very religious, right? And the ones that became religious are the ones that are still in a happier relationship. I'm not saying it's perfection, but a religious person understands that even if I don't want to do something, I still have to do it. I don't want to like bench, but I have to do it. I don't want to go to shul, but I have to do it. It's Shabbat. Do we really want this? Can I just have my own Shabbat, do whatever I want? And the answer is no. To be a religious person means that sometimes I relinquish the things that I want to do for something higher than myself. That trait of letting go of what I want for me, saying I will do for Hashem, the sacrifice, is the quintessential, necessary midah trait for a healthy marriage. If it's only about what I want always, it's always me, 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 good luck being in a relationship. It doesn't work that way. You have to turn the M into a W and make it we. And when you're weeing, you're moving really fast. You go wee. Okay, fine. So fine. Okay, got you there. All right. The actual root of the word emunah is omen, right? The craftsman. Something that is brought into reality through the hand of the craftsman. It shares the root with the Hebrew word of ima, meaning mother, who brings life from potential into actuality. This all points to the tremendous power of positive thinking, as our beliefs have the ability to tap into what exists in our potential and birth into reality. If you don't have emunah, you can't be b'simcha. Hashem shomrecha, Hashem tzilcha ad yad yaminecha. If you believe that God is truly your shadow, He's your protector, He's always on your right hand, He is mirroring what you do. We spoke about this, remember? God is your shadow, He mirrors you. You're in a negative space, you're going to pull negativity around you. You're in a positive space, God's going to mirror your positivity. Hashem tzilcha, al yad yaminecha. The right hand is chesed. Va'omer b'Hashem yachshov lo tzedkah. Right? A man puts his trust in God and he reckons his merit. You are a person who is doing what is right. God will give you what you need to succeed. You don't, you are bound to fail. Wow, this is great. This is good stuff. Where am I? 27. Thank you very much. This is what happens when you don't staple your sheets. Okay, so what do we have over here? We have Rashi. Okay, on that pasuk in Genesis, V'amen b'Hashem, and he believed in God. Right, it's talking about Avraham over here. Lo sha'alo ot al zot. He didn't ask him for a sign regarding this, but in respect to the promise that he would possess the land, he asked him for a sign. B'ma'ida, how will I know? Okay, v'yachshov lo tzedkah. The Holy One, blessed be He, accounted unto Abraham as a merit because of the faith in which he had trusted in Hashem. Another explanation of Ma'ida is he did not, by these words, ask for a sign regarding the promise that he would possess the land, but he said to him, tell me by what merit they, my descendants, will remain in the land. God answered him, through the merit of the sacrifices. When you and I, we don't have korbanot today, but when you and I make sacrifices, what feels like sacrifices to us, the things that we hate doing, again, my friends, that is the ultimate level of bringing God into this world, bringing the Kedusha, that spirit, that potential, that reality into our lives. This is how we become something more. It's how we become godly. If it's easy, there's something wrong. If it's difficult, that's something right. Do you understand that? Do you understand that one concept? Let's just go through it again because it's important. The brothers decided that Joseph was not to be trusted. They decided that he was someone that had to be eliminated. They made this choice. They had their own biases. To the point where after 22 years of not seeing him, they're standing in the room with him. All he has is no beard, or a beard, depending on how you understand that. And they don't recognize him. Why? How could that loser be the second most powerful man in the world? Now, during those 22 years, they somehow were able to maintain a lie and not tell Yaakov that Yosef was alive, that they sold him. Okay? The question is, why did Yaakov need to go through that pain for 22 years? What did he do? How could these 12 kids, 11, 10 kids, 9 kids that were involved in the sale do that to their father? They were so blind, they were so jealous that they couldn't make the right choice. And Yaakov has to go through that for what reason? Now, Yaakov is in pain. And he's thinking, like, what did I do wrong? Like, why does my son Joseph, why was he killed? That's what they told him. My son was killed by a wild animal, ripped into pieces. He lived that pain for 22 years. And one day, it all stopped. And somehow, he had the merit of recognizing how all that pain was for the benefit of something that the future Jewish people needed. They needed to get out of Israel, get to Egypt for this famine, and they needed to reestablish themselves there. Every single stop, every single challenge that we go through as Jews, okay, in our lives, all the pain and that suffering is not for naught. Stop being upset. Stop holding on to the pain. Let go of the anger. There's going to be a time where it's going to make sense. I promise you that. And when you're in pain, it's because you've forgotten. You've lost your emunah for a few moments. You've forgotten that there's something more that's going to happen for you. You all know it in your bones that what I'm saying is true. But it's so easy to hold on to the pain because it's just there. That's the Satan. He gets you. I'm reminding you, my friends, that the secret to our success as Jews is that in spite of the challenge and the tragedy that we've gone through, we found the courage to be besimcha, to trust, to build, to create. I read this horrible letter that I'm not sure if you saw it, I have it if anyone wants to see it, of one of the Noah Festival survivors wrote a suicide note before he took his life this week. Yeah. And he wrote a letter to his friends and family to explain why he did what he did. And it was horrible. I mean, he speaks about how he hid and how he watched the people outside of the bushes being killed and raped and tortured, and how this one girl who he watched being brutalized by several of these animals. and he did nothing, and then they just put a bullet in her. Like he just couldn't deal with what he was watching, what he saw, and felt guilty that he watched it and did nothing. And therefore he allowed himself, I'm not judging him, right? I don't know what any of us would have done in that situation, but he survived, and instead of thinking about all the good that he could bring into the world, he justified his suicide by saying, I don't deserve to be here, even though I have a nephew that's about to be born. It's better if I see him from heaven. It's better if I see him from heaven. My nephew, his sister was going to have a baby, and he's like, I don't even deserve to see my nephew. Like, I'm just going to it's a horrible letter, painful letter. But this is one of at least 50 other young people who survived the Nova Festival that committed suicide in the last 8 months. Right? It's like no one's talking about it, but it's horrible. Okay? Survivor's guilt. Right? You don't think people felt that way after they saw the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash? You don't think people felt that way watching Inquisitions and the Holocaust? How many people felt that way? But some of the most amazing organizations, institutions in the world were built by people that survived the most horrible things. You can't grow, you can't develop, you can't build if you don't let go of the pain. I'm not here to understand why I experienced those things. I'm here to make a choice of who I want to be and what I want my future to look like. Israel does not have a future if it can't let go of the pain and can't focus on all the good that's going to come out of all the challenge that came out of the world that we're in right now. I'm confident that we're getting closer to something very profoundly big for Israel. Getting closer, you'll see it. And if you don't believe it in your heart, that is you allowing the Satan to rule and live in your hearts. And that's only going to lead to your own destruction. Right? Hope, faith are the only things that we have in this world. The presidency makes absolutely no sense right now. You have two, what I would say are mentally retarded people running for office. Okay, one's a narcissist who's completely in love with himself, and the other's a psychopath who's living in a fantasy island, living in our own world. And each one represent the worst candidates for this country. The worst. If I could pick two of the worst people to become president, they're both running for it right now. If I had a choice between one and the other, I'm going to choose obviously Donald Trump because I believe that his policies are better for the world and for America and for Israel, right? And Kamala, I think she's anyone who says they're going to take away guns, I don't like, right? Anyone who wants to take away my Second Amendment is doing that because they want to take away my First Amendment. That's the way it is. Should there be some kind of restrictions? 100%. There should be psychological evaluations. There should be more things that are there. It shouldn't be open. But the point that I'm making is that you have a country with 350 million people here. Okay? You have some of the most powerful CEOs in the world. Some of those forward-thinking businessmen on the planet. You couldn't get two people running for president that are normal? Does that make any sense? This is crazy. It's insane. If you think of that, you just start laughing. It's hysterical. It's a joke. And it's a joke because at the end of time, it says that Yitzchak, by the way, who is his name, it doesn't mean to laugh. It means, and he will laugh. It's talking about the future. And the Chachamim point out that the Yitzchak that we're talking about is that at the end of the day, we're living in a comedy show right now. It makes absolutely no sense. It's so comedic. You have to see God's hand in this. We know that leaders in the world don't have free will. They're puppets, they're pawns. It makes no sense what's going on right now. The whole world makes no sense at all. It's crazy right now. And you and I are getting closer and closer to everything that Rabbi Hajjab has been talking about over the last few weeks. And Sefer Daniel and his Mashiach, and so we're getting closer. I'm telling you, getting closer. But if you don't have emunah, right? The test before Mashiach comes is whether or not you're going to allow your demons to rule you. Or will you have the faith and the simcha, the courage and the strength to believe that it's going to be okay? To find the courage to do what you need to do versus allowing your feelings to determine what you're going to do. You're in this room because you came from people who never allowed their feelings to dictate their reality. That's a fact. The people that allow their feelings to dictate their reality, you know what happened? They stopped. They gave up hope. They stopped building, they stopped creating, they just withered away and they died. They've been forgotten. Their descendants are no longer here. erased, gone. You're here because you come from a long chain of people that believed so deeply. They walk with God. That's so much faith, so much belief. Those are the people that had the courage and the strength to overcome every single challenge. What happened on October 7th is a joke compared to what happened in the last 2,000 years in Jewish history. So we got to find that courage. We got to find that strength. Abraham found that strength. Sarah found that strength. Right? Cain at the beginning of the story. Right? Where is he from? He is someone who is working. He's also the farmer. Okay, they're both tied to earth. God goes ahead and he accepts the offering of Hevel. El Cain el minchato lo sha'ah. He did not come. Vayichar the Cain. He became very jealous and angry. Viplu panav. He has a sour face, not a face of happiness, a face of being defeated. Gave up. Look at the next pasuk. V'yomer Hashem el Cain, lama charalach v'lama neflu panecha. Why are you stressed out? Right? Why is your face fallen? Why are you sad? Why do you have that frown on your face? Halo im titav sa'at im lo titav lapetach chatat rovetza. If don't you see, right? You could uplift yourself, but if you don't, sin crouches at your door. Its urges is towards you, yet you can be its master. That pasuk is so profound. It's so telling. Do you understand what he's saying now in that pasuk? What God is telling him? He's telling him that if you allow your emotions to define you, it'll rule over you. You don't have to, but he didn't kill his brother yet. The next pasuk, he kills him. That pasuk right there, that's Hashem says, stop. You don't have to do this. Don't allow your negative emotions to get the best of you. You could do better. Fix what you did wrong. You could always do teshuvah. The word chet does not mean sin. It means miss the mark. I missed the mark. I could go back. I could do it again. You every single day that you're alive is a new day. You think, I am what I am today because of who I was yesterday. That's sheker. It's not true. Every day you wake up, you're a new human being with a new opportunity. But you allow time, that narrative of time, to define what you are. When in reality, you could be anything you want to be today and tomorrow. It's not interconnected. Every day you do teshuvah today, you erase everything in your past. That's not who you are anymore. The question is, who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? Okay, 29. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. That quote is often attributed to Winston Churchill, but I looked it up, and the Winston Churchill Institute said he never said it, so it's unknown. Perkei Avot. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Avi Zahir b'Talmud, right? Rabbi Yehuda says, you be very careful in your study, for an error in the study counts as deliberate sin. Rabbi Shimon said that there are 3 crowns: Torah, Kahuna, priesthood, Malchut, royalty, but the crown of a good name supersedes them all. What do we want? We want you to have a good name. How do you have a good name? By doing what you're meant to be doing, by working hard. Abraham is such a simple person. He wants nothing in this world. He says, I don't want anything in this world. I don't need anything. I am so lost in a world of trust that whatever I get, and I don't complain about it. I don't get upset. That's his reality. That needs to become our reality. Vayakom Sadeh Ephron, right? He buys Sadeh Ephron, right? Why does the pasuk say Vayakom Sadeh Ephron and Ephron's land went up? Rashi says Vayakom Sadeh Ephron. It says Tekum Hayat Halo. It literally moved up. Why? Shiatza miyad hayajot liyad hamelech. Because it moved from the hands of a ordinary person to the possession of a king, right? Ephron was a loser. Avraham HaMelech was a melech. He was a king of his midot, a king of his nature. And therefore, when you are someone that has a Shem Tov, Warren Buffett, Warren Buffett says, listen, I want us to do a business deal, are you going to ask him for a contract? You don't want to see his SPV. You want to see, you just trust his hand and you shake his hand and you do a deal. Done. Because Warren Buffett is Warren Buffett. Avraham Avinu didn't need to go ahead and sign a contract. Right? But Ephron is a liar and a loser. And we need a contract. But when finally that happened, that exchange happens, what ends up happening? Right? Everything that Avraham gets becomes more. When you're a good person and you do what is right, you're a Baal Chesed, my friends, you just do what is right, that's all you want to be. I want to be good, I want to do good, I want to live good, I want to bring good into the world, I want to stop with the lazy, negative, earthy feelings that I have, I want to change that. How do I do it? By going out there and becoming something more. How do I become something more? Develop a good name. Start creating a name for yourself. How do you develop a good name? Okay, well, you start volunteering, start giving of your time, helping other people, do things, be creative, don't be passive, be proactive. Every single person here can be creative in one unique way or another. You could all do something that could change the world tomorrow. I don't need to believe it. You need to believe it and then do something about it. Stop focusing on the earthiness and feeling slow and lazy, and start leaning into the opposite direction and find everything that you're truly looking for. Everything that you want is waiting there for you. He wants to give it to you, I promise you, but he can't give it to you unless you're willing to take it. And the way you take it is by becoming what you're meant to be. And you're meant to be amazing people who understand that you, my friends, are a soul, not a body, that your traits, your nature, your family, your circumstances, your history does not define who you are, but you have the power and ability of redefining and re-expressing what you are meant to be. It's waiting there for you. B'ezrat Hashem, next week we continue the conversation. Have a great week, everybody. Shavua Tov. Questions, yeah?
Yeah, you said that someone has to be like in a state of heaviness to receive a word of God. And we see by Yonah that it specifically says he was greatly distressed by the matter of Nikayon.
Yeah.
And yet, God spoke to him at that stage. So how's that?
It's a great question. I don't have a great answer for you. I would say simply that that could be the exception. There's always exceptions to the rule. You know, Shaul, we know that he could not get nevuah because he was upset, he was depressed, and it's only when David would make him happy he was able to get something. And we know from the Rambam in Mishnah Torah, when he talks about nevuah, that the precursor to receiving nevuah was happiness. So it could be that Yonah, there's always exception to every rule. Just like Yonah was not in Israel when he got that nevuah, and typically you can't get nevuah unless you're in Israel, so there's two exceptions over there already. Not a typical Navi and not a typical circumstance. A great question there. Any other questions? Questions, comments? Yes?
What did you say about the timing? Like she was a geshet, like she wasn't in the side of earthiness?
She is earth, and B'ezrat Hashem next week you'll see what I mean. I'm not going to be here next week, actually. We're not going to have class next week because next week is Labor Day. I think we're off. But the week after that, I'm going to continue the series, and we'll see how Rivka is the bridge between Avram and Sarah and Yitzchak. And we'll see the bridges, how they all pass down these midot to the next generations.
She's earth.
Yeah, she's definitely earth. Thanks. All right, ladies and gents, Laila Toski.